everybody, welcome to LT Gaming. My name's Tom, and today we are doing a continuation of the Should You Buy series, and we are looking at Imperiums Greek Wars, which is a game Luke and I were given a key to. I'm going to look at the base game, and Luke is going to take a look at the expansion, which is the Age of Alexander. So, Imperiums Greek Wars, what is it? It is a little bit of a blend of genres, but the best way to think of it is somewhere between a 4X game, a historical grand strategy, and, little elements of mythology thrown into the mix as well. So here we have the start screen, and the kind of things that are important to note is that there is a very robust accompaniment to this game of a library, where you can look through, kind of like if you think of a Civilopedia or whatever, where you can look through and get a lot of details about the game. And this is quite a complex game, and a game that you need to spend some time getting used to. I will jump into the single player mode, but just to note, there is also the create your scenario mode, where you can create custom scenarios and go ahead with that, and also the multiplayer mode, which Luke and I are going to try co-op at a later date. So if we go single PC, you got two options, and we'll go new game, and we've got all the worlds here, but the one that is part of the base game is the ancient Greece, and so I will select this, and it gives you a nice little blurb here, and you can click to reveal the whole map and see kind of where each nation lies, and maybe the challenges that will face you in ancient Greece. But essentially your goal is to play through grand strategy and kind of hit certain goals and certain achievements with each nation. So I'll go through the goals in game, but essentially it breaks down to population, kind of progress, conquest, all these types of things to hit your targets. There is a good range of nations to play as, ranging from very recognizable Greek states, Athens, Macedonia, Sparta, as well as, we have some Persian Empire or remnants as the Achaemenid Empire. I butchered that, I know, the Achaemenid Empire. With their kind of vassal states surrounding them there, and each one will have kind of a different set of challenges. The main ones to play as are kind of listed at the top, and then it gets increasingly, I would say, more obscure as you scroll down till you have kind of, like, I have never heard of the Enchili tribes. They all have a range of difficulty, and they need to be unlocked. So the Chakilda I'm butchering these names, but these guys are going to be pursuing a much different strategy than you would if you were Macedonia, for example. So a lot of them will focus on trade as opposed to kind of conquest, whereas the ones like Sparta will focus very much on winning through warfare, essentially. So if we select, I won't do the tutorial, but we'll select Macedonia for the purposes of this demonstration. And then you have a next screen of options here where you can kind of customize the difficulty of the game. You have, if you go legendary, the game's going to be a hell of a lot harder than medium. And I've tried on some of the harder difficulties, and it is really difficult. At medium, you have to be careful, but most people will have a successful campaign, I would say. At hard, heroic, legendary, you're going to have to be a lot more strategic and discerning about your choices. So I will just kick this off here. So that is a quick kind of synopsis of all the options and modes that you would have in a regular campaign. And we'll jump straight in and have a look at how the UI looks in-game. And here we are with the Kingdom of Macedonia here. And I've turned my camera off so you guys can see the full extent of the UI in-game. Along the top, we have all the resources that kind of your empire will operate under. certain decisions and actions that can be taken. We have the current unit selected here in the bottom right, and then a lovely little mini map with some kind of toolbar settings that we can change. Want to have terrain highlighted or not, etc. For the world map. So the graphics and style presentation, I would say it's not like the prettiest map I've ever seen, but it is very functional and does get the job done. I do like the UI. It is quite intuitive overall. I think it's fairly easy if you play through the tutorial to kind of get an idea of maybe what needs to be done, what needs to kind of be taken care of. So for example, immediately I would see here, I need to get my settler onto this gold mine. And this is something you cover in the tutorial. And I need to connect this via road on the next turn. I would say that the tutorial could go a little bit more in depth to give you acclimatize you a bit with the map modes, as I found some of these quite useful as I've been playing. For example, the supply limit areas, stuff like this. So the tutorial could be a little bit more robust with the base campaign, just to equip you a bit more. But this is nothing you won't be able to learn as you go on your own. It would just nice to be equipped with those tools along the way before you start your adventures. We can also kind of go into the state window here. So you see I'm Macedonia, and there is a lot to unpack, from state decisions to trade overview, governmental types. You can change to city state or to despotic regime, whatever you fancy. And at the risk of sounding like a TV chef, here is one I prepared earlier. So this is the same adventure with Macedonia, advanced a few turns down the road. Not quite sure how many I've taken to get here. But there are some cool developments that I can highlight to you that show off some of the gameplay mechanics. So you can see here in the north, I've pushed, you see the purple outline, I've pushed my border a lot further before kind of retreating back to my city. So this is a very cool mechanic that if terrain is owned by your enemy or neutral, you can actually use your units to take it. And this becomes part of your empire. This appeals to the strategy side of me, as this then becomes better supplied, and there are kind of interesting implications with getting cut off and things like that. So it adds a really cool veneer to warfare strategy, I find. In terms of diplomacy and warfare otherwise, I entered into an agreement with the Reds here, the Chokilduk. I don't know, I'm brutalizing that name. But we agreed to have a joint military campaign against the Athenians, and they have agreed to take Potidaea, and I agreed to take Methone and Pydnia. And I was successful with my side of it, and they're yet to hold up their side of the bargain. However, pretty confident they're going to do it. So this warfare here did take its toll on me whilst I was simultaneously fighting in the north against the Dardanian kingdom, in which I just had to sue for peace in the end, as I couldn't make a breakthrough on their city, and my general, who I recruited to the front line, didn't really have enough of an impact, as I took some time to recruit him and get him up to the front lines. And I felt like I was going to lose some units if I didn't sue for peace. So this really shows you how you can get quite easily overextended in this game. And, in an earlier adventure I had with Sparta, we go down the south here, I can highlight Sparta. I had a very successful military campaigns early on, and I started to think I was a bit of a world beater. And I actually ended up getting called out in these mountains here and losing a lot of troops trying to take Mantinea. So, there is, I would say, a good deal of difficulty and strategy that needs to be kind of thought out before you enter into wars. There are kind of other 4X games where you just enter into wars willy-nilly, and this is one where you really want to be prepared for warfare prior. So this brings me on to kind of the last aspects, which is the graphics and the music and sound. The graphics are, it's not AAA. It is, I would say, attractive, and they do the job. Just nothing to write home about, but this is probably not why you're playing the game. The music and sound, however, I would say are absolutely phenomenal. I love the soundtracks, and sometimes I've played this game and had to do something else, and I've just left the soundtrack playing in the background. I really enjoy the sounds too. I think, they get the job done, but yeah, the music is really the standout star for me. When it comes to kind of difficulty and replayability, I have touched on this somewhat. I would say the replayability comes from the playing through the different historical settings. So Macedonia obviously has a huge legacy, and people are quite excited to fulfill that, as do Sparta and Athens and all these different Greek states. What I would say is the replayability can come from, one, trying to fulfill the different nations and their different challenges from the beginning. Two would be taking on different types of nations. The smaller nations tend to have an emphasis on diplomacy, trade, and being a bit more patient in their approach. So, this does add different play styles to the game. Replayability-wise, I think this adds a lot of flavor. I've started quite a few different adventures. My favorite ones, to be honest with you, are the more conquest-orientated adventures, as they're a bit more action. There's a bit more going on. But I can see people enjoying the kind of more of a pacifist diplomacy approach as well. And then finally, what I would touch on is the difficulty. I think this game is very difficult. It can be extremely unforgiving, and it's very easy in the beginning to, for example, I've kind of steamrolled Athens in this war, but I really struggled to win this war in the north. So what I will plan to do is bring my forces over here and try to attack them on two fronts next time, rather than just the one singular front. So I like the fact that this game, I couldn't just walk everyone over straight away. It does require some planning and some work on my part to carve out an empire and defeat my enemies. A few kind of reservations I do have is that I could see that this setting could get a bit stale after. If I play through a full game of Macedonia, I probably am not going to play through with the Thessalian League. I'm going to want something completely different, so I'll probably head east. So I do see some limitations in the far future, that you might get a bit tired of some of the maps and nations, as the approaches aren't that radically different. However, they have introduced a lot of DLC and a lot of different maps, which I'm yet to unpack. So this is a very kind of minor critique. So in conclusion, what do I think about Greek Wars? Imperiums Greek Wars, rather. I think if you are a fan of the 4X genre and you like a historical setting for this is a definite pickup for you. I would definitely recommend it as a buy to my friends who love the genre. If you're not a fan of the genre, I don't think this is probably the best game to start out with. This is something to kind of grow into, or kind of do some better known, well-known titles first, such as Endless Legend or Gladius, Warhammer Gladius. as these will be a bit more pick up and play. And this is definitely one for the lovers of the genre or fans of the genre. I hope you've enjoyed this video doing a bit of a deeper look into this game. Check it out. The links will be in the description to the Steam page. I believe it's been on sale recently, and there's a DLC coming out very soon. So I would, pop by, have a look, and we'll see you guys on the next one.